That's good. Morning, and welcome back. My name's Erin Murphy, and we're glad that you're joining us today. After the Easter Passover break, both the Speaker and I, along with a number of members of the legislature, were out on the road over the break, talking with Minnesotans about what we have accomplished thus far this session for the people of Minnesota, including, of course, tax cuts for more than 1 million Minnesotans and an increase in the minimum wage that'll put more money in the pockets of over 300,000 Minnesotans across the state. And we heard really good and strong feedback from the people of Minnesota, from citizens and community leaders about the work that we've accomplished thus far. But we also heard from Minnesotans about what they hope we get done yet before the end of the session, especially when it is impacting greater Minnesota and the growth of the economy there. And that's why we're here today to talk a little bit about the work ahead. Obviously, that includes another tax bill, a tax cut bill, the supplemental budget, and specifically today, the work that we're doing on broadband for the state of Minnesota. And so I want to say welcome back. I'm very excited about the work that we have left to do, and I'm confident that we're on the right track given the conversations that we've had with the people of Minnesota over the last week. And with that, I'll turn it over to the Speaker. Thank you.
Well, thanks. And I do want to start by thanking all the legislators who are here today who've worked really hard on this issue of expanding access to broadband, as well as the governor's task force and others who have been out there, local leaders, business leaders, educators, students, who've been really out there advocating for the need to accomplish this session, and that the legislature take action to expand access to high-speed internet throughout the state. It really is the time to act. When we were out traveling the state, time and again, I heard from local officials, from business leaders, that there's really two things that they're looking for in greater Minnesota, that as businesses are coming to them to talk about expanding, two things they're looking for. One is an educated workforce, making sure that we have good, smart people in the community to be able to do the work. And the second is access to broadband infrastructure. It really is a significant need out there, and I think we'll hear more about that today. In fact, Sandstone, I was up in Sandstone with Representative Faust and the city administrator there, made exactly that point last week when we were there. It is an issue of competitiveness, and really it's also an issue of balancing the playing field between all parts of the state, so that no part of the state is being left behind as we move toward the 21st century economy. And it's also a matter of leveling the playing field for students across the state. And we're going to hear more about that today. But there really isn't any question that access to high-speed broadband internet is access to a world-class education for Minnesota students. And that's what we're really concerned about. That's a big part of the concern with moving ahead with this broadband infrastructure bill. Our long-term vision for the state, I think, is going to be a state where every child, where every student has access, to being able to get their homework done on machines like this, on an iPad. I know that my own son and daughter, who are in 6th and 9th grade, my 5th grader doesn't get this yet, but they have iPads at school that are that they have access to, and they do their homework on, and they do their pre-testing on, and it does make a huge difference. And it's also the way that a lot of students learn a lot better, just because that's how kids' brains work these days. And so it really is a critical part of how we educate our kids, as well as business development across the state. And I think that the investments that the House are making, a down payment on living up to this vision of access to high-speed internet, broadband internet everywhere in the state, is exactly the right direction for us to go. And with that, I'll turn it over to Representative Faust.
Thank you, Speaker Thiessen, and good morning, everybody. I just want to reemphasize, I guess, what has already been said, that this is an extremely important thing for greater Minnesota. We keep hearing about how important it is for the businesses across in greater Minnesota and how they need this in order to compete in the global market that they have today. But it's more than just for businesses. This is also extremely important for the education of our children. And so I'm delighted today to introduce Nick Baki, who is the principal at the school where my oldest son is a teacher. And so it's fun to get together with him and to hear all the dirt on my oldest son and find out all the mischief that he's getting into. But and so he brought 4 students with him, and I found out that 3 of them are involved with theater, which my son directs there too. So it's nice to hear about that as well. But anyway, welcome Nick Baki to tell us a little bit how important this is to education. So welcome.
Thank you, Representative Faust. First of all, a big thank you to everybody that made this happen. The communication from the state capitol to all the representatives to have us down here today. It's a great achievement for our Mora students to come down and be able to share their story with you. As the assistant principal at the Mora High School, one of my initiatives is to have a tool in the hands of our students, so that from the 5th through 12th grade, to be able to take home some type of device in our one-to-one initiative. Having that tool is a huge resource, but what we're finding out now with the grade levels that we do have is that the infrastructure is not there for a level playing field for all of our students. We have a tool that's capable of a lot of collaboration and communication. Our teachers are preparing students for with 21st century learning skills for 21st century jobs, jobs that haven't been created yet, with technologies that we're not really fully utilizing yet. And so with the state initiative and along with our local Canadian Broadband initiative, educationally, it's imperative that we have an equal playing field for our students, not only to have a device in their hands to utilize and access, but to have the infrastructure behind it in order for those devices to be used to their full potential, which unlocks the full potential of our students. We have some amazing students in the Mora High School. I was able to bring a few down today, and each one of them has an individual and a personal story that they'd like to share with you. I'll let them introduce themselves, but once again, thank you very much, and here they are.
Hi, I'm Ashley Forsland. I'm a senior at Mora High School, and although I don't have an iPad, with my college classes, I found out that the need for internet is still there. Within my writing classes, we use turnitin.com as a place to turn in our papers to double check that we're not copywriting them. But the teachers set a deadline that when it passes that deadline, it's due and you can't turn it in. And I personally have had issues in which my internet has gone down, and I only live 2 miles outside of town limits, and I have been unable to turn it in and then have to use up my spare days to not get points docked off on the assignment. And more of our classes are using the internet as a way to either for Turnitin or to research or whatever, and a lot of it is done on outside of class time. I teacher aide for a class, and they have learning projects that they're expected to do at least 20 hours outside of school on their own time. And that's really it.
Hi, I'm Cassidy Carlisle, a senior at Mora High School, and one thing that's really important as a senior and for many other seniors that I learned with, we all use websites like the Common Application to apply to colleges, and it's really important for us to be able to do that, and they all have deadlines that they need to have the applications in by, and even scholarships. Right now we're all working on scholarships, and if we don't have the means to get online and to quickly do our work and to turn things in, we miss the deadline and we miss the opportunity to maybe even attend a college that we could get into because of just slow internet. And so it's really just important, even after our schoolwork, you know, to be working on what is going to get us through to the next portion of our life. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Thomas Basilis. I am also a senior at Mora High School. For all my life, I've been privileged with having high-speed internet for me, but in these past couple of years, I've lived in a low-income apartment building where most of them do not have high-speed internet, and then for them, it's really difficult for them to do research or anything like that for their schoolwork, which is now becoming more and more about facts and using the internet as a tool, as a resource, and just not having these tools really become an issue for them for turning things in and researching things, like I said. And I feel like if we did have that, a lot of problems would be solved, and it would just be a lot easier. Thank you.
And I'm Michael Greenberg. I am also a senior at Mora High School, and personally I have a couple friends that live even up to 30 minutes out of town that don't have access to internet. And I know that it's really tough for one of them specifically to have to make a 30-minute drive all the way to, say, my house where I do have internet, or even 20 minutes to another friend's house, just to do something simple like turn in a paper or do some research, something that really shouldn't take an hour's worth of driving and the cost of gas and things like that to cover. And I know that if these friends had the access to the internet, it would be a lot easier. They'd have more time in their day. They'd have more money, even essentially, possibly, because the gas costs to just get there. And that could even help as far as if you're having to spend 2 hours on this 15-minute quick assignment that should just be easy and turn it in, but yet you have to do an hour's worth of driving to just do that. That's taken away from other things that you could be spending your time on, whether it's more homework or, as Cassidy had said, scholarships, even extracurricular activities. I know that it can be really tough when you don't get home until 6 o'clock and then you have to make an hour's trek just to complete your homework. It can be very tough. So I feel that it would be very important to reach the outlying areas as well with the high-speed internet.
Good morning, Paul Marquardt, and I'm the chair of the House Education Finance Committee. And first of all, thank you so much for your stories. And as you heard from the students' stories, that indicates the huge importance of having good, high-speed broadband if we're going to achieve the world's best workforce. And we know with the world's best workforce that we have to make sure that every single student, every single one, is able to achieve so that we can close the achievement gap. And last year, we went a long ways in creating more equity along funding lines in the state of Minnesota. In fact, we were able to reduce the disparity between high revenue and low revenue districts, rural districts, and metro districts by about 23%. And with this investment in broadband, and with the $5 million that we have in the education finance bill for telecommunications for schools that will pretty much fully pay for their internet needs, this will go a long ways in creating equity in educational opportunities. And as we just heard, there's a huge difference just between being in town and out of town. The difference between able to do your homework and not able to do your homework, as the student so well just said. And as a state, we cannot afford to have one student fall behind. Because if we're going to get to the world's best workforce, we have to make sure that every single student is at high achievement and we close the achievement gap. So we think with the $25 million in broadband that is in the works and the $5 million that we have in the education finance bill to fully fund internet for schools, that we can get to the world's best workforce. It's going to be crucial to achieve that equity between the rural and the metro districts. And again, thank you to the students so eloquently stating why we need to do this. So thank you.
Good morning, State Representative Erik Simonson, and I am the author of the bill here in the House. And I just want to say thank you to the students for coming down and sharing this story, because I think it highlights one important piece of what we're trying to accomplish with this investment in statewide broadband. This bill really is about economic development, right? I mean, one of the things that you will hear no matter where you go in this state is the need for this quality, dependable broadband service. And it really doesn't matter if you go to the southern part of the state or if you go up north or here around the metro, the message is the same. You know, business has this need. And access to broadband has really become a critical piece of infrastructure that they depend on. So this bill was designed to generate economic development in places that potentially either are unserved or underserved when it comes to broadband access. And what we're doing here by increasing economic development puts greater strain on our education system. And as we do that, we need to make sure that what we're providing provides them the opportunity that they need to move forward and provides them with the tools that they need to become, as Representative Marquardt said, the best of the best, which is really what we expect. Within this bill, we've put enough provisions that gives the Office of Broadband Development the flexibility to award grants based on the best return on investment. And we are suggesting an investment of $25 million, and we hope that that returns itself many times over. We expect to see a high volume of applications because there's a lot of need across Minnesota. And we think that we have a good program and we have a good start, and I'm excited to be a part of it. And I do want to thank the Speaker and the Majority Leader for their leadership on this issue, because this is important to all Minnesotans. And I think with that, with questions, is that where we're at? Okay.
What are the needs of school districts and the disparities that the assistant principal talked about? How does that fit into the grant program? Will that be considered for
Yes.
these?
One of the provisions in the bill, if you look at the language about, the priorities of the grant applications themselves, is what return it provides that community based on what services it improves to education, what services it might improve to industries such as healthcare, where we're seeing a huge spike in need for broadband access as well. So we think that the language that we put in the bill provides enough, provides a higher level of importance on applications that can not only provide new service, but will improve things like educational opportunities and access to healthcare.
How much money is really needed overall to get broadband everywhere? I know the chair said fully funded, but the speaker kind of called it a down payment. How does the money look at the big picture here?
So if you look back to the governor's task force and the latest report that's come out, there's a wide range of what that number is, but it is somewhere between $100 million and $300 million. And that you have to consider that size of an investment is impossible to make in one bite. But also, if we do it right, we can generate good public-private partnerships, which will increase other monies that will come into that equation. So we think that that's good.
Fully funding is a separate item that's in the education bill.
So next year, if we are all back, will there be an opportunity, do you think, for additional investment in this fund?
Well, we're coming back. But no, $25 million sounds like a lot of money, but in this particular initiative, it's really a small amount. But I think what we all hope is that it's going to provide us some good data. We're going to get a good sense of what the needs across Minnesota are by the applications that come in. And we'll be able to come back next year and really take a look at what has happened between now and then and chart a course forward. But I envision that there will be a significant return that shows us that this is a good investment of state dollars, and I hope we can move forward.
How many people do you think you can reach with $25 million? How many people can you connect?
It depends. I mean, it really depends on the specific project and the density of the area where the project is. So to me, it's less about how many people, how many individual people that we connect with, more about what type of improvements will be made in that specific community.
One other question, the $5 million in the education funding, you said that will pay for internet access for every school?
Right now, for schools, it's about $18 million total for kind of their internet. Most belong to a consortium where they get the internet. The federal government provides a little over $9 million. Right now, we're providing 3 to 4, and then the state will pick up now the rest of the unreimbursed, which is around 8.5 to 9 million. Right now, we pick up about 4 million. So when we're talking about fully funding the school's internet, we're not talking about the quality that they're getting. And the Center for Rural Policy and Development did a survey a few years ago of schools, and you look at the map and the speed of the internet, and it's a quilt work. I mean, it's all over the board, with many areas of rural Minnesota having the slowest speed. So when you talk about the infrastructure, that's a key. So as the speaker said, it's two different issues. This would fully fund their internet costs unreimbursed in the schools, but doesn't deal with the quality that they're getting.
You've got 25 in the supplemental. What does the Senate have in their bill?
My understanding is that the Senate, it doesn't have anything in their bill right now.
That's why there's concern. You're trying to build some public awareness about this so you can have it survive the conference. Is that it?
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, as we've traveled around the state, there's a clear interest in this. It's one of the first things that people talk about when we travel around the state. And the governor has also expressed his support now publicly for doing the $25 million. So I feel like we're going to make some good progress this year. But we do need to keep this, on people's minds and continue to communicate the importance of it. And I think we've heard a different, we talk a lot about the business piece of it, but I think what you heard today very eloquently again is that there's an equity piece to this, not just for businesses, but for students and for education. And I think that really is an important part of the discussion. Thank you.
Speaker,
Sure, real quick, when you were out traveling the state during the break, what else did you hear in addition to the internet? What did you hear people were saying about how you've done and what they want you to do yet before the session ends?
People seem very happy and energized. We talked a lot about the bonding bill on the trip, and there's clearly projects all across the state that people want to help to develop their communities. There's a lot of interest in a bonding bill, and we have this agreement at the $850 million that's in there. Another important part of that agreement is it includes just the Republican projects that were in the bill last year. There's a lot of interest from Republicans all across the state, Southwest Minnesota being a very prime example of new projects that Republicans want. If they want a big, if we want to include all those projects, we clearly need to have a bill that's bigger than $850 million. But that was an important part. I'll let Representative Murphy talk about other things she heard about.
Sure. I heard a lot of feedback from citizens and community leaders about what we'd already accomplished, and talking about this legislature again being one of a lot of accomplishment. They're very interested in this issue of broadband. They understand it in terms of economic development and education and the way of life in Greater Minnesota. So I heard about that in every stop that I went to. I also heard about transportation funding, and especially potholes and pothole repair, which I think we're all, experiencing. Hopefully, the repair, and this would come as no surprise. Funding for home and community-based workers caring for people with disabilities and community and the aging population in Greater Minnesota. That also came up in every stop that I made. They are anticipating our quick and complete work on a bonding bill, and they are excited. I think that they're going to get some attention to issues and projects in Greater Minnesota and in their local communities. So again, I think they've been very pleased. I heard a lot of commentary about the work that we've done thus far, that we're making real progress for Minnesota, and they expect more in this last half of the session.
Is it possible you'll spend cash for some of these projects that would ordinarily be in the bonding bill so that you can get more of this without going up over the 850?
I think that's a possibility, yes.
And finally, do you think you're going to get done before May 19th, or is this going to run right up to the deadline?
May 19th is our deadline. I did not talk about that. It did not come up.
Didn't come up for me.
Do you expect it'll have a hearing again in the House, or some movement?
Maybe we can wrap this part of it up, and so the students don't have to stay around. If there's other questions, we can take those. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. You guys should stay. Thank you.